Well, welcome everybody. Happy Monday. We got Kirsten here in the studio and I'm at home tonight, but she's going to be teaching you to paint a cold winter scene. So those of you that are warm can get a taste of the winter. And we really haven't we had a little bit of snow here actually on Saturday. It was funny, like a couple flurries.
I had none. I was sad.
Yeah. So anyway, welcome everybody. If you are brand new, Kirsten's going to teach you to paint this painting in just about an hour. We will try to keep up with everybody's speed and skill level. If you are not able to keep up or you don't have product, you can always watch this video. It will be recorded and you can watch it on michaels.com on their community classroom page after. And it usually takes about 24 hours for them to get it up. But they will have this video so you, oh, the audio is off and I am just talking. Can you guys hear me? Can you hear me, Kirsten?
Yeah, we can hear you. Yep, I can hear you.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. I was in the middle of my spiel. Everybody said the audio was off.
Okay. Yep, I can hear you perfectly.
Oh, okay. Perfect. Okay. Well, anyway, if you are not painting along or you want to go back, you can watch this on michaels.com. You can get all your products on michaels.com or in the stores. So it's a couple great options. Go to michaels.com. You can, take the supply list, get your supplies. If you need to paint at another time, we can always make suggestions. If you don't have the exact color, we are using amazing folk art, which we make. So we love that paint. And I think that's it. Definitely, if you have questions, let me know. I'll try to keep up with them in the chat. So again, we'll try to go at a great pace for everybody, but you can always watch after the fact on demand when you have time. So it's all yours, girl.
Okay, so we are, just like Kira said, we are painting this winter scene. And one thing I always like to say when we get started is I'm going to teach you a bunch of different techniques. How to do these clouds, how to use the palette knife that some people love and some people don't, but it's just a great way to learn different ways to apply paint to your canvas. So really have fun with the techniques and make this painting your own. If you want less snow, if you want less texture, just do what you feel comfortable with. But I'm gonna paint exactly what you guys see here. So real quick, my supplies is I'm using FolkArt, like Kira said, just FolkArt acrylic paint, and I'm using French blue, sky blue, navy blue. I always put black in the palette for anybody that might not have the right colors, they can mix. So we will use a little bit, and then wicker white. So those are the colors that you're gonna need. And again, I called out for something kind of fun tonight. So this is Mod Podge Extreme Glitter. And this, I'm not sure if you guys can see it on there. Let's see. Oh, am I forward? Oh, it's hard to see, but when you see it in real life, it is so sparkly and so beautiful. So this is a Mod Podge finish that is clear, but with tons of iridescent glitter in it. So it's just something fun we're doing at the end. And then you are going to need several different brushes that I called out. But if you don't have the exact set, make sure that you have a few different flat brushes, a few different sizes. They don't have to be exactly this. And then a palette knife. And you can use plastic, you can use metal, you can use any size that you want. And then always some water, some paper towels. I'm going to use a piece of white chalk. If you don't have that, I'll show you how to do it with your brush. And then something to put your paint on. I love a pad of palette paper, but whatever's best for you guys. Okay.
Can you go over the colors again?
Yep, absolutely. So French blue, sky blue, navy blue, black we're barely going to use, but I always call it out if people are going to have to mix. And then wicker white. So those are the colors that we're going to use. And then the Mod Podge Extreme Glitter is a bonus at the end that will make your canvas beautiful, but don't worry if you don't have it. Okay, should we get started?
I'm just typing the colors in the chat here. If you don't have glitter, no problem. You could always use glitterific. You could use regular Mod Podge and loose glitter. You could use FolkArt Extreme Glitter. So lots of glitter options.
Absolutely. Okay, so I am going to put navy blue, sky blue, and the French blue onto my palette.
And I just wrote wicked white or wicked white, but it's wicker white.
And then I'm going to use the number 10 flat brush, but if you're more comfortable with a really big brush, definitely use that. And what we are going to do, guys, is we are going to divide our canvas very loosely into 3 sections. The top section, you're just going to need to clean off your brush on a paper towel. You don't have to use water for this. And then your middle section, so you're just dividing it into very loose 3 sections. And you are going to base coat the top with the navy blue. And when you're base coating, you just want a really nice, even coat. You don't want areas that are really thick. You just want to cover up all of that white canvas. And the reason we're doing this for anybody that's never painted with me is I love to work on a dark color. Because what we're able to do then, instead of having to layer color after color after color to create highlights and shading, we're using a dry brush technique and we're adding lighter colors to the top of a dark base coat, which just makes layering so much quicker and easier. So you're going to do the top in the navy blue. You're going to clean off your brush, but remove all of that water. One thing when I'm painting is I like to have always a very dry brush. And then in the middle section, again, if it's a little bit bigger, a little bit wider, but you just want 3 basic areas, we are going to use, let me make sure, the French blue in the middle. And what I would do first is don't butt up to the navy, not yet, but we are going to blend these all together in a minute. But just base coat that middle section. Again, just a nice thin coat, making sure all of the white is covered. Now, one thing I always say is do to the sides what you guys do to the top, because these stretch canvases that Michael sell are just so nice. They have no staples. They have very clean edges. And that way you don't have to frame it. They're just beautiful without a frame. I'm going to go back and base coat my edges for the navy blue, making sure that top and both sides, what I did on the top, do the sides. Okay. Oh, I almost stuck it in my brush basin. Every time you clean your brush, just make sure that you dry it off on the paper towel. And then on the very bottom section of my canvas, I'm going to go in with that lightest blue.
And again, as long as you have 3 shades of blue, somebody was asking about brilliant blue, or, you know, as long as you have even if you have 1 blue, you could add black to it and add white to it and get 3 shades. So you really just want 3 shades of blue.
Absolutely.
So, and Kirsten's using navy blue, French blue, and sky blue. So those are the 3 shades. But again, you just need 3 shades of blue. So if you only have 1 blue, you could still make this work.
Absolutely. Okay, so you can see that I've got 3 really divided stripes. And then starting on the bottom with the lighter color, I am just going to go back and forth over that area where those 2 colors meet. And you'll pick up just enough wet paint from both stripes to just soften that edge where those 2 colors meet. The main thing is you just don't want a really bold line. And then I'm going to clean off my brush only on the paper towel, not on the water. And I'm going to do the same. Oh, I'm going to hold my canvas still, but I'm going to do the exact same thing up here. I'm going to pick up just a little bit of that middle tone to soften the edge of that navy. The great thing about working with acrylics is it dries so fast. It does what oils would do, but it dries fast, so you can just do so much. But pick up a little bit of paint right here if it's too dry, because you want it to move and blend just to soften that line. Okay.
All right, let people, give them a minute, let them get caught up.
Absolutely.
Lots of blue.
Lots of blue.
Yep. So navy blue, French blue, and sky blue. But again, any shades of blue would work. So you just really want a dark, a medium, and a light down your canvas. And you really truly did like thirds. So a third dark, a third medium, and a third light.
Perfect.
You're like, yes.
Perfect. Yes. Okay. So now anyone that is already done this step, make sure what we want to do tonight. So this is our base coat. So we want this to be dry. So for those that are still painting, absolutely keep painting your base coat, but I'm going to hit this with a hair dryer because we definitely want to work on a dry base coated canvas. Okay. Yep, everything is dry. Little thick area. I'm going to hit that one more time. Okay. How's the base coat coming? Pretty good.
Yeah, people are just painting.
All right. I know on the screen you can barely see the difference in those two colors, but that bottom is such a really soft aqua blue. It's a beautiful folk art color. But remember, you guys, this is only a base coat. Everything will be covered up. You just really want the values of the color. You could even use black and fade it to gray. So many options. You just want dark fading into a lighter shade. Oh, I see a question. Do you gesso the canvas first? No, you don't have to at all because the Michaels canvas are just such high quality. They're great to paint on right out of the package. Okay, Kira, what do you think? Should we get started?
Yeah, let's go.
Okay, so what I don't want anyone to do is be intimidated by the pattern. A lot of times people want to draw the pattern exactly, like they want to draw the details of each individual tree. I try to get people not to do that and to think of shortcuts, because what will happen then is as you paint, you're actually going to cover up that pattern. So it's just very intimidating and it's not the easiest way to apply the pattern. So what we're going to do for this one is just basic shapes and lines. So the first thing that we are going to do is we are going to draw just a really loose line where the sky meets the ground. And I'm going to go a little bit into my middle blue, and I'm just going to do a line across the canvas that's a little bit of an angle. And this is where I was telling you guys earlier, have fun with it. If you want a straight line, if you want a bigger incline for a winter hill, if you want it lower at the bottom so you've got more sky, do whatever you love. But I'm just going to mimic this. So I'm going to go starting a little bit above my middle shade and just go at a little slight angle. So that's your ground. And then all I'm going to do to mark the trees is I'm going to do lines. And I'm just going to do a few little lines just on this side of the canvas. Maybe 5. Maybe one more little one. So those are going to mark where your trees fall. So where these trees fall. And then for our big winter tree, I'm going to draw a longer line in my sky and then about 2 inches into that bottom color. And then what I'm going to do for this one, just because it's the focus of our canvas, is I am going to turn that into a really tall triangle, but very loose.
Kirsten, if somebody doesn't have chalk, can they use a pencil? Can they use paint? What should they do?
Yep. Okay, so I was telling you guys, you can definitely use a pencil, but because we're on a dark canvas, this is a little tip. So this is just a smaller round brush, and get the littlest amount of wicker white on your palette and put that brush in there, and then wipe most of the paint off on your paper towel and just do the same thing. Very, very soft lines. You don't ever want a pattern that you have to work to cover up. So that's why the chalk is very, very light, and do the paint very, very light. Let me see. I'll do it right there so you can just see, but just a very dry brush. It looks exactly like the chalk, but that's using a brush with no water and wicker white. So apply your pattern that way.
Can you go over your lines, like how many and where you place them again?
I sure can. So first do your line that separates your sky from your ground. So that would be this little horizon line that you can see on the canvas. So that's just a soft angled line. And then I'm marking how many trees I want in the back. And if you want 3, if you want 6, but I'm going to do 6. So I'm just doing short little lines, not spaced exactly apart, but just very random on the base of that line. And then for your big tree, which is the focus of tonight's painting, I started with a tall line. And then just because he's kind of the hero, I'm creating that into a long triangle. Again, you just want the placement of your painting. You don't want to go in there and trace the exact tree, because there's no need for that, because we're going to cover it up with so much technique.
I had a giant stuffed animal here. Nobody told me that was in my background.
Oh, I can't see you. I love that. I wish I could see you now. Okay, should I keep going? I always want to go just slow enough, but I don't want to keep anybody waiting.
Yep. I'd say give them another second. And definitely, if you are not able to keep up and you need to go back, you can always go to michaels.com, the community classroom page where you signed up to join this class, and you can watch this video on demand when you have time.
Perfect. So you guys keep applying your pattern, but I just want to show you another little trick. So this was a little paper towel, dry and clean. And all I'm doing is gathering it in the middle and scrunching it up almost like a little paper towel ghost. And on this end where the edges of the paper towel is, I'm just kind of crinkling it and smushing it down. Now, this is a little tip and a technique, which I would love for you guys to do this, but if not, you guys can just dry brush some white into your sky. Doesn't have to be, it can be smaller, it can be larger, but it's just a little, almost like a, maybe a quarter size, and just some wadded up edges of a clean, dry paper towel. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put more wicker white onto my palette. And I am just going to I want to make sure you guys, yeah, you can. I'm going to pounce into that wicker white, but then I'm also going to pounce on the side, removing all of that. And what would also work is a little piece of sponge, an old scruffy brush. There's so many things, but I love to teach little shortcuts out of household things that you just have around the house. So just dip into the wicker white and then dip off onto your palette or paper plate. And in a very loose, soft pattern, I'm going to create some texture in the sky. Very, very light. You don't want to over pounce it.
Can you hold it up, Kirsten?
I sure can. Yep.
Thank you. Yep.
And remember, you can always go back and add more, but you can't take it off. So just always start with very little paint, pounce into the paint and then remove it. And then I did a little bit in that corner, and then I'm going to do a little bit just focusing in the middle of my sky. And I'm kind of jumping around, rotating my hand a little bit so I don't create any kind of a pattern. I'm going to do it a little bit on this edge. Oh, it's making a lot of noise. My canvas is knocking around. But just very, very soft.
And you're just using a paper towel or napkin and you scrunched it up. Very technical.
Very technical. Like crunch it up like you're throwing it in the trash, but then add some white paint and you've got a perfect sponge to create some texture in your sky. Pick up paint. And the only tip with this is just remove extra paint on your palette or on your paper plate. But just a few areas where you're breaking up that line in the sky and you're just creating kind of a winter background.
I want to say, and I'm going to say it wrong every time, Aurora Borealis, like kind of like that. Am I saying it right?
I don't know. I say it wrong.
The Northern Lights, right?
There you go.
That's kind of what it reminds me of.
Yeah. Just a beautiful winter sky, like when the moon is out and you see all the stars, but just to break up the color.
Yeah. And you could add some pastels too if you didn't want it just to be all white, like some pastels to the background, like pinks and blues could be pretty.
Oh, that would be beautiful.
Yeah. The Milky Way. Yeah.
Beautiful. Okay, so now what we're going to do is I'm using the number 6 flat brush. Again, no water. I always like to use a dry brush. I'm going to dip that in the navy blue. And I'm just going to trace over my little chalk lines to create a permanent home, a stem for those pine trees in the background. I'm staying on the tip of my brush. So it's just a thin line to give those trees a home. Looks like telephone poles, but it's not.
I love our description. It's so inspiring.
Right? Makes people want to paint this wintry telephone pole painting.
With some paper towels.
Yep. It's COVID. Anything is allowed.
Yeah.
And I'm going to do the same thing with my big tree. I'm only going to do that stem just to anchor him on the canvas and give him a permanent home. I'm not going to do the triangle, but I'm going to have that there for placement when we get into the technique. Okay, so what we're going to do first is these cute little trees off into the distance. Using the navy blue, I'm going to load the brush. And what I like to do, can you guys see my palette? Yeah, I kind of brush in the paint on one side of the brush, and then I flip the brush over and load the other side of the brush, never getting all the way up onto that metal. You want to just get into most of the bristles. Make sure, see how there's still some bristles that are natural, but really loading both sides of your brush. Let me get it on the lighter color. Whoops. And you want to keep it very thin. You want to make sure that you don't mess up those bristles by loading on each side. And with the flat chisel edge of that brush, I'm going to hold my brush straight up and down off the canvas. And I am going to, let's see, jump across, almost like ticker tape, kind of across the center of the stem of that tree. You don't want to create perfect lines and do stripes, but you just kind of want to jump back and forth, staying on the flat edge of that brush, picking up paint as you need it, and just pouncing back and forth. You still want to do a very gradual, almost like a triangle, less on the top and a little bit thicker on the bottom, or a little bit wider, I'm sorry, on the bottom.
Kirsten, can you hold it up?
I sure can. Let me try to do one holding it up. That can be tricky. So my brush is straight up and down, not like this, because then you'll get too much paint. Straight up and down. Oh, let's see if I can do this. And I'm just going to jump back and forth across that stem of that tree. Oh, might be wiggling too much. Let me put my hand under. Back and forth, a little bit wider at the bottom. You want to kind of get rid of that center line. So just shorter at the top.
Everybody says seeing it that close is really helpful.
I feel like I'm shaking it too much.
No, I think that's super helpful.
Let me try. It's tricky. But see, you're in your mind, you're still making a triangle, but you just don't want it to be perfect. You're breaking up that center trunk of the tree. And just very random, jumping back and forth.
I wonder if we need to see if we can get the camera closer for next week too, because it is really helpful to see that close.
Yeah, we definitely can. That's a great idea. I definitely don't mind holding it up though, if that's helpful for people. But the key to this is just staying on the tip of that brush and not creating a pattern, oh, my hand's in the way, not making stripes back and forth, but a very loose, random pattern. Oh, I feel like my hand's in the way. I'm going to angle my brush a little bit, but you guys be straight up and down, but just back and forth over the stem of that tree. And you'll notice your branches are overlapping. That's what you want. So don't worry about that. But see how that center line on my tree is softening? That's exactly what you want. But you want to make sure also some of your sky still comes through the branches.
Can you hold it up a little bit closer, Kirsten?
Sure can.
Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah, it's hard to zoom. Like when we do Facebook Lives and things like that, it's easier to zoom, but maybe we need to just figure out a way to use the handheld or just get a little bit closer because that looks great.
Perfect. Now what you want to do on the very, very top is just using just the corner of your brush, just create a cute little top of your tree because you want it to be a tall, skinny pine tree and you want that top to have the same look. But you'll just have a cute little collection of trees, making sure that some of that beautiful light blue is coming through, but then also breaking up with a really random pattern. Any questions about that? Now I'm using the number 6 flat.
Number 6, yep. You guys are quicker than I am to answer. Number 6. Somebody was asking about a fan brush, but I think that's kind of harder to control. So I think that 6 is really great for how tiny it is.
I love a flat brush for the reason you just said. It's easier to control. A fan brush is wonderful and you can do so many techniques. Oh, we've got our magic assistant in here trying to lower us.
A little bit.
Okay.
I know I was below the canvas painting. Yeah, that's perfect. Is that a little bit better, guys? Just to be closer to the canvas?
Yeah, you got plenty of room. Even Kirsten, you could move over. Yep. And go a little bit closer, John.
Because I want to keep the palette in there just a little. So when we do some more techniques.
Yeah. You could even take your finished painting and push it where the paint bottles are.
You want to get that close.
Oh, I don't know. Could we get that close?
Yeah.
All right, hang on.
And,
I mean, you guys, we're on demand for everybody here.
That's right. But painting right here now is very easy because now I'm not below the canvas.
Okay.
So we can get to this level, which is perfect, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Perfect. And if you see a little camera, that's all right,
Yeah,
right?
you can see it.
Totally.
Okay, so pounce those trees. You're just filling that area in, making sure you've got the light blue. And then what we're going to do, and again, use the brush that you are most comfortable with. I'm going to use the number 10 flat, no water, and I'm going to use the Wicker white, and I'm going to load paint and then remove a little bit. You just don't want to have too much paint on your brush for a dry brush technique. And what I'm going to do below the tree in my lightest blue color and kind of on the outside edge of my triangle pattern, I am just going to dry brush the ground. And what I'm doing is, again, no water and Wicker white. And I'm just going back and forth almost in, Jess said it perfectly, in like a slip slap pattern, because you don't want to create a perfect pattern. You want a very random, loose texture. And you're just adding shading and highlights to the snowy ground below your trees and around your large tree. But see, this is what I love about a dry brush. See how you can see the texture of the canvas. You can see the light blue, the white, and you get so many different shades just by adding white over that base coat. So just a very loose, random pattern. You don't want to work left to right. You just want to work in different areas so that the paint does not create a pattern. I'm going to do a little bit on this side of my triangle. Don't cover up the light blue completely because that's what gives you all the depth and dimension. But just creating some snow over that light blue. Now this is one of those areas due to the side, what you've done to the top. So I'm just going to dry brush a little bit of white on the bottom and the sides of my canvas, just in the areas where that bottom lightest blue is. And I'm just using a medium flat brush with no water. You just get such a soft texture for the base of that canvas. Can you guys see that? And don't worry, just very random and loose around the edge of the triangle, because we're going to go in and cover that up, but you just want to have that texture all over the ground on your canvas. Okay. So now we're going to do pretty much the same thing that we did here on our big tree. That was kind of practice to get you guys ready for the technique, because this guy we're going to do just a little extra. So I'm going to use my flat brush. I cleaned that and dried that off. Again, no extra water in your brush. And I'm going to use my number 10 flat, which you're welcome to use a 3/4, a 1/2 inch. I think it'll be easier for me to show you guys the technique if I'm using, whoops, you didn't see that. If I'm using the number 10. So I'm going to get a little bit more navy. If you need more, get some more navy on your plate. All right, let me make sure I'm in the right spot.
Yep, you're perfect.
Loading the brush exactly the way we did for our baby trees. I'm brushing in the navy on one side of the brush and then brushing in on the other side of the brush, flipping it. So it's got a good amount of paint in there. And then keeping that edge really, really flat and crisp. That's my chisel edge. And I'm going to do the exact same thing, keeping the brush up and down on the canvas. I'm just going to hop, jump and hop. Is that angle confusing? I want you guys to be able to see it.
So you're not
Across
going
that-
directly, are you going straight across or are you at an angle?
No, I was trying to do that because my hand was in the way, but yes,
Oh,
I'm going
gotcha.
straight
Straight
across. So just like you did for the little guys, You're just jumping and going back and forth, kind of using your triangle as a guide, but don't worry and overthink it. You don't have to stay exactly on that triangle. Just use that as placement. Pick up paint as you need it, loading it on both sides of your brush.
And everybody said that angle was great because it was a little bit closer.
Like that?
Okay. Yeah.
I just
So I'm
don't
gonna
want
make
to
it
get
super complicated. Yep, there you go.
so it's definitely straight. So when I turn that, I don't want you guys to think it's an angle. It's
Yep.
definitely straight, just like we did these guys. But I'm just staying, see how I'm kind of pouncing almost on top of that same line, but very loose. Each line is not a stripe. Each line is not the same length. You just want to keep the background color showing through, but you just want to go back and forth, softening that stem in the middle. In some areas, you can do more on the stem. In some areas, maybe they're longer and skinnier. And using that triangle as a guide so that your tree is like a really big, maybe upside down ice cream cone. Now it looks like we're losing the top of our tree. It's hard to see on here. You can still see it, but we're going to go in and add white. So still do the technique that we're doing. It's hard to see on the camera, but at home, I think you can still see the top of the tree going into that dark sky. A few you can just slide across, but don't do them all like that because you want that texture. But if you've got some areas that maybe aren't covering up, you can do one or two where you're just sliding a stripe, but only as a filler, because you definitely want to use this technique to get the soft edge on the bottom of each of your branches. Don't forget to load each side of your brush. Remember, you can always add more, but if you're really heavy at first, you can't go in and get that background back. And all the dimension is so beautiful by having those base coat colors showing through your tree. Okay. I'm going to hold that up real quick for you guys to see.
Perfect.
Oops.
So not completely filled in.
Correct. And really loose edges. See how not each one is exactly the same. It's not a perfect triangle, but just very loose. You kind of run off the edge of the canvas here. That's nice. It all comes together at the end with that fabulous palette knife. Okay. Any questions from anybody?
No, I think everyone's just painting.
So all I'm going to do while everybody paints is just a few areas. This is just the smaller flat brush, clean, no paint, no water. If there's some areas that the paint might be a little bit thick, I am just going to almost like dust that, almost dry brush that, just to soften areas where the paint might be a little bit thick. If your paint is not thick, do not worry about this step. I just don't want any big areas of thick navy blue, but no water and just softening that tree. Okay, so the exact technique we've been doing, we're going to do that now with white. So I'm going to get my smaller flat brush. I think this is, let's see, the number 6. I'm going to use the number 6. I need a little bit more white on my palette. And what we're going to do, we're going to focus on these little trees. So loading our brush exactly as we did to get the navy blue. I'm going to go in one side. I'm going to load the other side, but keeping that tip really, really straight, your chisel edge. I'm going to put that flat. Now with the white, what I want you guys to see, let's see if you guys can see it on here. You don't want, so you've made your tree with the navy. The white is just the accent where the snow piled up during the storm. So you don't want to cover all of that dark blue with the white. For example, on this tree, it's a little bit heavier down the middle. On this tree, it's a little bit heavier just on that side. You just want to accent each one of these trees with the same technique using the wicker white. So I'm going to load my brush again. And with that flat tip, again, using your hand up and down, I'm going to tilt my canvas just so you guys can see it. I'm just going to softly do that, maybe just on this side of the tree. Pick up paint as you need it, but I'm just hopping in a very loose pattern on top of that tree. I'm going to do the same thing on this little tree, maybe focus on the middle. But you don't want to cover up all that navy blue because that's your tree.
Are you kind of going down the center, or are you like kind of picking a side?
Well, for this one, I went down the center. For this one, I picked the side. So I want you guys really to focus on the technique and have fun with it because you cannot mess this up. If you do each one the same, like I'll do this one's down the center and this one I'm going to do down the center. Because of the technique, they're going to look so different. But you just,
and it's not like a light, like it's snow. So I feel like it could be more sporadic.
Absolutely. Because you've already got your beautiful tree. This is just showing where the snow would pile up on the branches. And you can add more or less. Maybe for you Michigan people, you want your tree to be loaded with snow. Unfortunately, us in Georgia, we just want the littlest bit.
Maybe the California people want the snow since they don't get it.
Maybe they want all white trees, even though I said don't, but.
Michigan wants palm trees.
Yeah, exactly. But you are just, the only key to this is staying on the flat edge of the brush and very lightly hopping across. You don't want to create stripes. And you don't want to cover up all the background or all of the branches. But see how easy that is to get so much texture, highlights, and shading?
Yeah, it really brings them to life.
So then we are going to do the exact same thing on our big guy. I'm going to go up just to my number 10 flat brush. I'm cleaning it in the water, but make sure you remove as much water as you can on a dry paper towel. Oh, sorry, I'm shaking my whole table, cleaning off that brush. Okay, nice and dry. I'm going to get a little bit more white again. And that's the wicker white. Load it just like we did with the navy blue, loading both sides, but keeping your chisel edge nice and sharp. And we are going to do the same thing on this big tree. And because this big tree is a hero, is like kind of the focus of your canvas, I want you guys to kind of focus on this side with the snow at first. So starting at the center where I applied my stem and working to the right is where I'm going to apply the snow first. Let's see if I can do this. So I'm going to keep my brush straight up and down, very loose grip, and I am going to hop just back and forth. And less is more, so maybe start really light. And this is where you'll be able to define the top of that tree that's up in the dark background. But don't create stripes, just very random. You can go as far as the edge of your branches. You can go just in the center, but for now we're focusing more towards the center and right. Doing one side at a time. Pick up paint as you need it. Just make sure you keep that chisel edge nice and sharp. but you're just jumping back and forth. Working from left to right, left to right, left to right, like an old-fashioned typewriter. See how you get all that dimension? Let me hold it up. You still want to have the background color peeking through. You want to have the navy blue, which is the base of your tree. That's what gives you all of that shading, highlighting, and dimension. How's it going? Any questions?
No, everybody's talking about snow and everyone's painting.
I love that. Okay, so now what we're going to do, let's see if I can hold it up on here. Whenever the snow falls, that was a mouthful. Whenever the snow falls, it lands on the top of the branch. So what we're going to do, see how in just a few of these areas on the very edge of both sides of our tree, I've put white on top of maybe an area that's navy blue. That's what we're going to do. So we are going to, and this is going to plump up our tree. So we're going to load white just like we've been doing. Let's see if I can get this right where it needs to be. So there, for example, see that little navy blue branch? I am just going to pounce a pile of snow on the top of that branch, and see below it another navy blue branch. I'm going to just pounce just a little extra white on top of him. Maybe that one right there. You don't have to do every one. Turn it a little, but I'm going to just pounce a little bit extra snow on the edge of him. I'm going to do it again up here.
And if you add too much white, you can actually just go back with your navy blue.
Yep.
And cover up some of the white. Somebody was asking, you know, what if you accidentally, that happens. So don't worry, you can always cover it up.
Yep. If that does happen, use the same technique that you did to build your navy blue tree and just put it in the area that's got too much white. But I'm just going to do that at the very top to define the top of my tree. But see how it's kind of fluffing and plumping the tree a little bit? So I'm going to come down here, and on the top of that navy blue one, I'm just going to add a little thicker area of snow. And do it again down here. And then even though this area has got more navy blue, I'm still going to add the snow onto the tops of those dark areas. And it's just really defining and giving character to where the edge of that tree is. It fills him out a little bit. Can you guys see? So it's keeping all the dimension, but it's just showing where the snow would land, always on top of the branches.
He looks so much fuller now.
Yeah, just doing that to the edge, because you don't want to do it all the way across because you don't want to create a stripe pattern.
Right.
So we added white all the way to create some highlights, but now we're adding the details of where the snow would land. Let me hold it underneath. You guys see that? I'm gonna add a little bit right there. And then the same thing, if you guys have a lot of paint on there, you could go back with a dry brush. Clean my brush. And just dry brush really softly back and forth, almost dusting or polishing any areas that are too thick. But no water, just really light with a clean, dry brush. But see how you've got, let's see how close I can get it. You've still got your background colors, you've got your sky in there, you've got really thick edges where the snow would land. You've just got so much beautiful detail.
Looks great.
Okay, so now that you've got that, what we are gonna do is the palette knife. So you could go in and you could add even more snow. You could accent those edges of your branches with just a great scoop of white. But all we're going to do tonight is finish off our sky and our ground. So I'm using a metal palette knife. You can use a plastic palette knife, and palette knives come in a million different sizes. All of these are perfect. For what we're doing, it's very beginner and very basic, and all we want is a different way to apply paint to our canvas. So I am going to pick up, using the flat end, the bottom flat edge of the palette knife, I am going to scoop that. Can you guys see that? Yeah. I'm going to scoop that in the wicker white. And see how you've got, I'm going to hold that up. See how you've got a good amount on your palette knife, but not too much. You just want to kind of go back and forth in the paint that you're going to use. So what I'm going to do, I always want you guys to feel comfortable moving your canvas to what is natural for you. So for me, when I use a palette knife, it's natural for me to pull towards me. So I'm rotating my canvas a little bit, because what we're going to do is we're going to create a bunch of snow texture in this bottom section of our canvas. So I'm going to pick up white on the bottom of my palette knife, and I'm going to go right along the edge of those little trees, and I'm going to just pull that palette knife towards me. Picking up more paint as I need it, and this is just wicker white, and just letting that skim across the surface of the canvas. Let me see if you guys can see that. And the great thing about using a palette knife, in addition to the dry brush, is I want to make sure you guys can see it. See how you've got the light blue base coat, then you've got the dry brush white, some of the canvas texture, but then you've got those areas that would be so hard to paint, but it's all of those layers of snow using the palette knife. The palette knife is such a great tool to get that look. Okay, need a little bit more white on my palette. I'm going to do the exact same thing, picking that up, just pouncing the bottom of your palette knife into that white. I'm going to do the exact same thing under this big tree. So I'm going to go right under the tree, and I'm just going to pull down. If you like to go left to right, that's okay, but I always like to pull the palette knife towards me. But see how on there it creates more snow, more texture, but just letting all that background technique show through. Can you guys see that on there? I'm gonna wiggle it around a little bit. Okay, so then just with a paper towel, I'm gonna clean off my palette knife, and I'm gonna pick up the navy blue the same way we did the white. Just loading that onto the bottom of my palette knife. And you can see right here, this is just where the shadow would be created from this tree. So turning my palette so I'm comfortable, because I'm going to pull this way, right here on this edge, the right edge of my tree, I'm going to put that palette knife there and then just very loosely pull towards me. And do a little bit right there and a little bit right there. Just kind of creating a base for that tree. Now I want it to be a little bit more snow, so I'm going to clean off that palette knife with a paper towel. I'm going to pick up a little white, and you don't want to overwork this because the palette knife applies so much paint, so it's wet, but I'm going to pick up the white, and just with one little pull, I'm going to add a little bit more snow into there. But it's just giving you all of that layer for the closest part of the ground, closest to you. Pick up a little bit more white because I don't like that dark area right there. And I'm just going to skim that over that, creating a little bit more snow. Now you don't have to do this, but for those that love the palette knife, some do and some don't. If you choose to, I'm going to pick up some white and just show you how you can just sliding back and forth. You can add a little bit of texture to your tree if you choose to. Your tree is so beautiful without doing that. So just do that if you really enjoy working with the palette knife. But you can add a little bit of thicker paint just on the edge where you've already applied the snow. Just touching and pulling, just to give you a little bit more of a textured canvas. All right, then the very last thing that we're going to do, and this is just to get that little fly speck, that little splatter that kind of ties everything together. This is the only time that you are going to use water. I'm going to clean off my brush, but I'm going to keep it wet. It's a little bit of blue just because I have dirty water, but I'm going to mix water with white on my palette. And you want that really thin like milk. And a little trick that I learned a long time ago is I'm going to take another brush. It doesn't matter which one, but that's going to kind of be the base. This is my brush that's loaded with the wet, thinned down white. And I'm going to tap, holding this brush on the very end, I'm just going to tap it onto this other brush. And that's just a very simple way to have a very controlled splatter. You can use a toothbrush, you can use a stencil brush, but sometimes it just goes all crazy. But if you just tap a base brush, it's such a controlled way to add splatter. So see how that just kind of brightens up the sky, the Milky Way, like Kira said, and just kind of ties maybe your background that you did with the paper towel. It ties all of that together to give you that beautiful winter scene.
I love it.
How's it going? Any questions?
No, everyone's just happy and painting. You can use this FolkArt acrylic on paper, people were asking, and you could use gesso for the texture if you wanted something like a little more 3D, but the paint works, you know, you can always go back and add.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, so now for the most fun, and actually now that we move the camera, let's see. I bet you still can't see it.
Nope. It's hard to see this. Oh, I can see it on the tree.
Oh,
yep, right there. There you go. Yep.
Oh, I wish you guys could see it in real life because it is so beautiful. Oh, you can see a little bit right there. Oh,
totally see it on the tree. Yeah, right there.
Okay, so how we did that is this again is one of my favorite products. It's Mod Podge Extreme Glitter, and it dries completely clear with a beautiful, almost like a hologram glitter. And the glitter particles are so tiny. You know how sometimes glitter is thicker and more chunky, which is perfect for some looks, but this is so thin that it won't cover any of your techniques up. It'll just create sparkle. So I am, let's see if I've got a spot on my palette that's clean. I'm going to pull it this way. Oh, you guys can see up there, right? Yeah. Okay. I'm going to pour a little bit of that Mod Podge sparkle. You can see it's, or a lot, it's thin. And I am going to pick that up with my palette knife. There's no right or wrong. I'm just going to get some on there. Now be careful down here because your paint is still wet. I'm only going to do it on my tree because my tree is dry. But if you guys want to add glitter, either dry it with the blow dryer or just wait a minute until your base coat is dry. But I'm just going to pick that up and just brush it in very random pattern. Because remember, it looks white, but it will dry clear with a soft sparkle finish. But I'm just going to cover just my trees because I want it to look like they're glistening in the snow. And then just my big tree. And again, it looks white on here, but when that dries, your painting will be exactly the way it was with just a beautiful shimmer. And there is no right or wrong way to do this. You can apply it with the brush or you can apply it with the palette knife. I love to use the palette knife just because with this style of painting, it creates just a more random application for the glitter. But you just want to put that on there in all the areas. Like I'm probably not going to add any to my sky, but I'm going to palette knife that right over the ground so that the base is really shiny when this dries.
And again, the Mod Podge is going to dry clear with just the sparkle. So that's not going to cover up any of your painting or your brush stroke.
Right. As you can see on here, I covered all of this area with, oh, you can see it. All of this area with the sparkle, all of the trees, and it just dries and you just, oh, look, oh, you just have the sparkle. And everything is water-based. The Mod Podge is water-based, so it cleans up the same as the FolkArt with just water. Any last minute questions?
No, I think everybody is saying thank you and they love this painting.
Oh, I'm so glad. Thank you guys.
Yep. You can dry the Mod Podge with a hair dryer. It doesn't take long. It dries pretty quick.
Yep, very quick.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll be back next week. Thank you guys so much. Don't forget to hashtag your paintings, hashtag plaid crafts so we can see them. Hashtag make it with Michaels because we love to see and comment on everything that you guys do. And we'll be back next week. I don't know if you have the paint.
Oh, I do. Oh, golly. Oh, hang on.
Oh!
Sorry, I had to jump down.
We're sticking with snow.
Yeah, so it's this beautiful snowflake. And this one too has a great specialty paint that's FolkArt. I think it's Color Shift, maybe.
It is Color Shift, yeah.
Okay. You get that beautiful metallic finish.
Yeah.
Oh, it's hard to see. I'm wiggling it so you can see it. So yeah, some more winter.
Very frozen.
Very frozen.
Yes. All right.
Thanks,
well, thank you guys.
everyone.
Thank you, Michaels. We'll see you guys next week. Thank you so much. Have a great week.
Bye.
Bye, guys.